Hello and welcome to Parshat Vayechi, which is this week and the last Parsha in Sefer Bereshit. And this week's Parsha is unique from all the other ones because it is a Parshat Stuma, which means it is a closed Parsha. Usually between one Parsha and the next, there is a space indicating the break in between the one that preceded it and this one. But here there is none. It goes directly from the last week into this week's. And so the question is asked, why? Why is it a closed Parsha? And the answer that I most famously recall is that this was because Yaakov, who wanted to reveal what was going to be at the end of days, as he said when he was about to die, he gathered all the children and said, I will reveal to you what will be in the end of days. But then he doesn't. He goes on to give blessings to his children, and we're told that's because he wanted to give over the information, but it was closed to him so that he could not. And then there's other opinions, like the hearts of the tribes was closed because they were in anticipation of the impending doom of the Shibud Mitzrayim, of the subjugation that was about to be, that they were going to be enslaved, especially a spiritual enslavement, and therefore their heart was close to that. And different answers, none of which ever really resonated with me. And I had a thought which I'd like to share with you, that the reason why it's closed seems to me because that shows that it was closed. There was nothing in between. There was no space in time in between that would indicate some sort of change. Things were the same from the Parsha before, where they came down to Mitzrayim, where Yaakov came down with the tribes and they sat there to live there, from that moment until many years later, when not only Yaakov died, but after Yosef died, and then the book ends. And the fact is that there was no change. Things were the same. The book ends there. And the reason why I say that nothing changes is because if you look, there's a few examples of this. First of all, when Yaakov dies and they bury him, it says that the brothers perceived that their father had passed, and that perhaps Yosef still hated them and he was going to take revenge on them, and they were fearful. And they sent somebody ahead and they said, your father commanded that you should forgive our spiteful deeds. And then they followed this messenger and they fell on their faces and they said, we will be a slave to you. And Yosef breaks down. He sees that the brothers, they didn't believe anything. I mean, after everything, after he said in the first encounter, I don't hold this against you, this is not you, and this is God's plan. And he made it clear in that conversation. And not only that, he spent many years sustaining them with food. He gave them land, he took care of all their needs. And throughout all this, the brothers still doubted his sincerity. They still thought that he hated them. And that's one indication that things were still the same all those years later. And another indication was when, even before that, when Yaakov was about to die, and he calls Yosef, and he says to Yosef, do me a favor, Yosef, please make sure I am not buried in Mitzrayim. Take me out of here and bury me in Canaan. And Yosef says, I will do as you say. And Yaakov apparently wasn't good enough. He says, no, I need you to swear. I need you to swear that you will bury me in Marat Machpelah and you won't bury me here. And there was no trust. He didn't trust that what Yosef said he would do. And this was a problem. I mean, this was a result of many years of him suffering, of so many expectations that he had that didn't come to fruition. He still harbored that, and he still worried about that, and that was a problem. And there was apparently no change. There was questions of trust. There was questions of communication. And when you don't work on these things, when there's no faith and trust, communication, and you don't work on making things better, they don't stay the same, they get worse. And that is the beginning of exile. That is the beginning of when things start to break down, and that's why this book ends. And then we go straight into Shemot, which tells us quickly about the exile, and then God goes into the redemption, which we know begins with the word. And they cried out, they used their voices, and then Hashem heard. And so we're at the end of here. I say chazak, chazak, chazek. I mean, this is the end of this book. Coincidentally, it coincides with the new year. But the way to have change, the way to have hope, the way to have a better 2021 is to start with giving a little bit of yourself, with that vulnerability, with that trust. Open yourself up and try to communicate better and have faith a little bit more in your fellow and work things out together. Because if you don't do that, there is no better future. So with that, you want to make it easy. I know it's harder to do than it is to say, but have a l'chaim, have that celebratory New Year. Not that I usually celebrate New Year's, but I'll never turn down a drink. So l'chaim, and here's to new relationships, better future, and only good things. Happy New Year's.